These multi-class builds are all about attacking multiple times per turn and using mechanics from multiple classes for free extra attacks and other bonuses. So if this is your first, your third, your 10th playthrough, these are some fun builds you should check out. Let's go! Let me know any other multi-class builds you'd like to see, but before we get into the Monken Monster build that attacks 8 times in one turn, I've got to thank today's sponsor, Factor75. Factor75 is a meal delivery service with the goal of creating chef-crafted, fresh, never-frozen meals delivered straight to your door. During new releases for games where we're putting out like a video every single day on this channel, I work literally from the moment I wake up until I go back to sleep, and it makes it really difficult not only to find time to cook meals, but also remembering to eat. That's where Factor comes in. Their nutritious, ready-to-eat meals come together in minutes, removing any stressful meal planning or meal prep, and it's cheaper than ordering takeout every single night. They can also meet your dietary requirements, like me as a vegetarian. They have dietary options like keto, low-cal, vegan, and vegetarian, with more than 27 plus meal options. Each week, there's something for everyone. All meals are dietitian approved, so you're safe in the knowledge that you're eating healthy meals that are easy and readily available. I personally can't wait to try Factor, but they don't deliver to Australia yet. Nick, our editor, has actually been trying Factor though, and here are his thoughts.
Between work and life, it's hard to find time to cook, so I've turned to Factor, and their meals are just what I needed to wean myself off of getting daily takeout. I love their chicken selection. Like the shredded chicken taco bowl topped with cilantro sour cream. It's been the easiest way to actually make a quick, healthy meal for myself instead of getting my third order of Taco Bell this week.
Use my link or go to go.factor75.com and use my code POG NorZZa NOV50 for 50% off your first box. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code with your phone. Thanks Factor75 for sponsoring this video. So this Monken Monster build is our first build. Now this incorporates 3 classes that essentially all focus on giving the Monk class more actions and bonus actions they can do each turn, as their Way of Open Hand and Flurry of Blows attacks already allow them to attack multiple times. And then we're combining this with the Fighter level 2 to grab Action Surge, which you get at level 2. And then on top of that, we're getting the Rogue level 3 at Thief as the subclass, which will then allow you to grab the bonus action you get from the Thief subclass. So ultimately, the way this build comes together is you're probably going to start as the fighter because it gives you the most amount of proficiencies, like say, you know, if you wanted to go into heavy armor or have a shield equipped in your offhand, which you can actually do and still use unharmed attacks to give you a little bit more AC. And then we're getting the monk to level 6. So at level 3 here as the monk, you will grab the Way of Open Hand subclass, as that gives you the Flurry of Blows benefits. The reason you're getting it to level 6 here is at level 6 you get the passive bonuses that allow you to add additional damage to your unarmed attacks, like say Manifestation of Soul to add additional radiant damage. So they are benefits from that. You also get the feat at level 4, which we'll talk about feats in a little bit. And then the rogue, we are getting up to level 4 as well for that additional feat. So you get 2 feats, but at level 3, you'll pick the thief for the extra bonus action here. Now the thief also gives you access to those cunning actions you can use. So you could say hide or disengage or dash. The dash does come in handy for this build, so it allows you to use that bonus action to get in closer rather than having to waste an action or something like that. The ability points for this build are a little different than you may think. We are heavily focusing on strength, constitution, and a little bit of wisdom, as wisdom can be used to add to your armor class if you're not wearing armor for this sort of monk general build setup, which you probably will want to do depending on if you're equipping a shield or what your sort of general gear setup is. And for your feats, you want to grab the ability point modifier to give 2 additional ability points to your strength, and also grab Tavern Brawler. So when you make an unarmed attack or use an improvised weapon or throw something, your strength modifier is added twice to the damage and attack rolls, and you can also get an additional strength or constitution from this as well. So essentially what this means is, because essentially all of our attacks as this monk build are going to be unarmed, you're adding your strength modifier twice to that overall attack roll, giving you significantly more damage. So realistically, any time that you can do this is obviously significantly more beneficial than if you can't. In combat, your combat turns really just come down to using, say, your standard attacks twice, which will give you those 2 attacks. And then you've got 2 bonus actions that you can use for, say, the bonus action attacks that we're using for the Flurry of Blows, whether that be to stun enemies or topple them over or push them or whatever choice you want to make there. Then you've also got Action Surge, which you can use to then give yourself another action to make additional attacks with your standard attacks. And then On top of that, if you say have a haste potion, you can then give yourself an additional action in a different way to then attack even more. And even though when haste runs out, you do get the lethargic debuff, for the most part, by the time it runs out, unless you're doing it in like a boss fight or something, that encounter will be over because of the sheer amount of attacks you can do, especially if you're using these other two builds as well that we're about to talk about. And the next one is the Pactadin. So this is a Paladin and Warlock hybrid. And one of the best things about the Paladin class is the Divine Smite and the amount of sheer damage that Divine Smite can do. Now this build is a little bit different in that we are going to use a specific sword, though you don't have to, and I'll explain why we're using that specific sword in a little bit. So as a Paladin here, you get the extra attack at level 5. Now before patch 3, Deepened Pact that comes with the Warlock at level 5, that will deepen your connection. Say if you're a Pact of the Blade, it would originally give you an extra attack. This used to stack with the standard extra attacks. It no longer does, but we're still combining these because I'm focusing on a specific sword that adds an additional reaction, and that sword itself also allows you to make an additional attack with the Jeweler's Enthusiasm when you don't have something equipped in your second hand. Plus the Withering Cut bonus on this sword also allows you to add necrotic damage, and so you can do a lot of benefits there, but the main thing is the additional reaction. So because even without the additional Deepened Pact extra attack, right, we're going to at least attack twice. Now this sword that we're using here, when we've got nothing in our offhand, gives you the additional option to crit if you roll a 19, and you've got those two reactions that you can use as well. Now because of the way that the Paladin works, you've got a pretty high chance of hitting in general, and by having the extra 19 and 20 rolls, you have got a higher chance of rolling a crit. And by changing your reactions to set up with Divine Smite, you can set it up in your reactions so that if you do critical hit, you have the option to add Divine Smite onto that attack. Now because we have 2 reactions and 2 attacks, you can actually do this twice in one turn and just deal a ridiculous amount of damage. But you've also got a special ring you can get in Act 2, I believe, called Killer's Sweetheart. So when you actually take out an enemy like kill a creature, your next attack will be an automatic critical hit. So on top of that, you're guaranteed to then have that Divine Smite critical hit for that anyway. And even regardless of if you're not using the Divine Smite in that way, just using it normally, you've also just going to attack at least 3 times per turn just with your normal attacks plus that Jeweler's Enthusiasm with this sword. This sword does come from sort of midway through Act 3 if you do want to grab this sword, but this build itself works completely without it, right? Like because of the way that the Warlock and the Paladin combine together, we're getting both of these to level 6. You've got all of that charisma buff that you can get, plus you're putting a lot of points into strength as well for your overall damage output. And then if you want to do some range damage, because we're a Warlock, you've got Eldritch Blast, which can be completely maxed out on top of that. So this alleviates some of the Paladin's like lesser abilities, which is in terms of like range damage, because you've got Eldritch Blast and some of the Warlock spells on top of that. You can even use the Warlock spell slots for your Divine Smite. It's a really fun and flexible build that has a lot of roleplay elements because of the Paladin as well. Highly recommend this build. Our last build that we have for today is the Gloom Assassin, and I couldn't think of a better name for this, so we're just going to go for that name. And what this build is it's combining the Rogue and the Ranger, 2 of the weakest classes in the game in my personal opinion. You can check my classes ranked video if you want more thoughts on that, but by combining these classes, we can essentially grab the best elements of each and then combine them into this amazing stealth-focused assassin class. So what you want to focus on here is initially starting as a Ranger, and we will get the Ranger to level 8 for the 2 feats, but at level 3, you'll grab the Gloom Stalker subclass to grab Dread Ambusher, so you gain a bonus to your initiative, and on the first turn of combat, your movement speed increases by 3, and you can make an attack that deals an additional 1d8 damage. Once you've got the Ranger to level 4 and you can grab a feat, I would be grabbing Sharpshooter here because you can then add additional damage to your overall attacks at the minus of the attack roll, but that doesn't really matter because most of the time we're probably going to either be attacking from stealth or attacking out of combat or from high ground, so you're going to be just getting essentially 10 free damage on every one of those attacks. Now, after you've got that, you want to add the Rogue to this build, and at level 3, we're going to pick the Assassin subclass. So this gives you a couple of bonuses, one being the Initiative Assassinate. So in combat, you have advantage on attack rolls against creatures that haven't taken their turn yet, so it just completely mitigates the Sharpshooter negatives we were just talking about. You also get Ambush, so after a successful attack roll against a surprised creature is a critical hit, so your first attack in combat or outside of combat will be a critical hit. hit. And then the last class feature gives you your action and bonus action back at the start of combat. So the main thing you want to do here is start combat from the rogue outside of combat, say surprising the target with like a sneak attack, and then you'll immediately get that action and bonus action back, and you can then attack again, plus you've got Dread Ambusher attack, so you'll get heaps of attacks in that one turn. And we're using this as a ranged build, and it does help alleviate those issues with the rogue has with only being able to attack once per turn, because at level 5 with the ranger, you'll get that extra attack, so you'll be able to shoot off 2 arrows in that one turn, regardless of whether you're in the middle of combat. But this build just absolutely excels at the start of a combat encounter, and you really want to start combat as this Gloom Assassin outside of combat and surprising those targets to get all of those benefits and deal like just heaps of damage right at the start of the turn. Like in this encounter here, you can see that I wipe out like 3 enemies before they even attack back. So this is a great build, and in terms of your ability points, we're really focusing on dex here and a little bit of con. You could get a little bit of wisdom here because you've got a ranger and you've got some of those spell slots available to you if you wanted to use those spells in that way. But for the most part, we're really just focusing on martial damage here with the bow and the different benefits you get. Plus there's heaps of great gear in the game that benefits from, say, attacking from stealth and those sort of scenarios. But let me know your thoughts on these 3 builds in the comments down below. Are you going to try them? Do you have any other builds that you would like me to cover? Let me know down below. Thank you guys for watching this video till the end. Thank you Factor for sponsoring this video, and thank you for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is NorZZa, and I hope you have a great day.